So, good evening, Robert. Welcome back. This is the third session, third and final session of our therapeutic series. We have a little bit more time to talk today than we have in previous sessions. So, I want to welcome you back.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to let you know that you've been extremely helpful, and I hope that these sessions have been something for you to get even just a little nugget of peace.
That helps.
Good. So last time we spoke, we were talking about stress and how you've been able to handle stress, particularly with a situation with your ex-wife. So why don't you give me sort of a where you are right now?
Well, I'm actually doing better with that. I'm not sure if it's because of what we've talked about, probably, but or maybe I just haven't been thinking about it. I don't know.
Have you been doing anything that reduces stress? Like any activities or?
Actually, I've been keeping busy because I'm trying to start a new business on the side, and that's keeping me preoccupied. Although that brings up a sort of a stress of its own.
Mm-hmm.
It's different, though, I guess.
What kind of stress does it bring up for you?
I've just, I've been in business for myself before, and sometimes I'm successful, and sometimes I'm not, and for some reason, this one is kind of pushing some buttons, getting started, because it's a lot of work. Sometimes it's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm not sure if I'm going to be good enough to do this, especially on top of a full-time job. I'm a little worried about putting a lot of money and time into something that may or may not fly.
What kind of business is it?
It's an internet business. It's selling products on Amazon. I purchased a course which cost a lot of money, and I don't have a lot of money to put into it, but I'm really trying to create a retirement for myself, because right now I just don't have enough to retire before the age of 97, and trying to find a solution to that, and it's kind of stressful.
I can absolutely agree with you, particularly with the concept of retirement and having enough money, enough things to feel supported in older age. That's definitely a worry for a lot of us. But you also mentioned that you don't know if you would be good enough?
Well, that's sort of a recurring theme, in my life, I suppose. When I look back at my past and the work that I've done, it seems like there's a core issue of not good enough, not loved enough, not successful enough, just not enough. And usually I can overcome that on a day-to-day basis and just be optimistic and be positive and take the next step to doing something. But sometimes when I get overwhelmed, especially if I'm starting something new and I'm jumping into the deep end, those kind of things come up and I have to deal with them.
Well, that's very intuitive of you to know that about yourself, and to be aware when those things, those types of feelings occur. And yet they still don't prevent you from doing things that are in your best interest, like starting a business, so that you could have have some sort of supplemental income when you retire.
Well, I'm not getting any younger, and that's sort of a motivating factor. If I don't do it now, it's not going to get done, and I don't want to be that 80-year-old guy hobbling around at Walmart saying, "Welcome to Walmart." It's not that scares me.
Mm-hmm. That scares me too,
and it motivates me.
Yeah.
So it's like I have to do this, or I have to do something, and this seems like the thing. After doing a lot of research, that looks like it could be successful.
What interested you about that specific genre of business? It's a very clear trend that people are not walking into Walmart Mm-hmm.
or Macy's, or there are a lot of businesses going to somebody who opens their computer, does a couple clicks, and they've got something coming from Amazon in 2 days.
Right.
And it's very clear that that's a very quickly growing business. I looked at some other variations of internet business and really was turned off by them. I don't want to be any part of an infomercial.
Mm-hmm.
So this seems viable from, and I've got 35 years of sales, marketing, and management under my belt, which doesn't necessarily keep me from feeling overwhelmed, but it helps a lot.
I would imagine, that sort of experience in that industry is definitely advantageous for you picking this specific area of business. Have you actually started the business?
Yeah,
or you?
I've started it. Okay. Well, just over the last week or so.
And what is your anxiety level starting it?
Depending on the moment, anywhere from 10 would be like the most anxious, and 1 would be the least anxious. Anywhere from a 2 to an 8.
2 to an 8.
Because fear isn't rational. It's something I have figured out in 63 years.
That's pretty intuitive. Fear isn't rational.
Right.
Yeah.
But it seems real at the time.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And what I like is that it doesn't block you. It doesn't stop you from acting in ways that are positive.
Well, but it slows me down at times, and it gets me very stressed at times, and then I have to stop and usually pray and meditate,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes just take a nap, or sometimes, let it be okay that I'm feeling stressed, and just otherwise it gets stuck, and just allow it to go.
And so prayer and meditation, those are things that are behaviors, active things that you do to reduce anxiety. And they work?
They work when I do them,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still a part of me, and I don't really understand it, I just know that it's true.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of me that wants to stay stuck in the ship.
There's a part of you that wants to stay stuck in the ship.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Why?
I don't know. I think, again, it's just the nature of fear. It's not rational. But sometimes it's really hard to overcome. Experience has shown me that I will overcome it. And my determination and my faith is stronger than my fear.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't preclude me from running into something that makes me feel overwhelmed, that makes me feel fearful, that makes me feel stuck. If I knew how to do that consistently and effectively, I probably wouldn't be having this conversation with you.
Do you consider yourself, are you the type of person that when you have an idea, it needs to be completed immediately?
Yeah, patience is not one of my virtues.
Patience is hard.
Yeah.
I know that in my experience, patience is something that definitely needs to be a practice, something that requires vigilance. But in the end, it's well rewarded. And plus, starting a business, in my experience, isn't always a fast, speedy thing.
No, it requires patience.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm overflowing with it.
And so where does your mind go to when your patience is low?
When my patience is low, it typically means that my fear is telling me that I have to hurry up and get this done. Otherwise, it won't happen, or it'll be out of control. Or I have to control it. I have to grab onto it. I have to make it work, and that's really not the way it works. Mm-hmm. But again, it's just I've been working at this for a long time. I understand the beast.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily mean that I can always catch it immediately or get back to center immediately and allow it to flow instead of trying to control it.
Are you able to observe when you're in that space to allow yourself to say, I'm in a hurried space and I need to just allow whatever is occurring to occur without thinking? Because you said, I'm not good enough. There's a reoccurring sort of theme that I'm not good enough, I'm not loved enough, and I'm not successful enough.
And it all boils down to not enough, and that all boils down to I'm being fearful and I'm deceiving myself as to who I really am.
Mm-hmm. And all of those things, not enough, sounds to me like impatience.
Yeah.
Because I'm not giving it enough, I'm not doing it enough, I'm not being it enough.
Right.
Has there ever been a time in your life when you felt as though you were enough?
Yeah.
You want to tell me about it?
Well, when I stop and I accept where I'm at,
mm-hmm.
and let it be okay, and I pray and I meditate, I get back to what I call my God-centeredness,
mm-hmm.
in that space, in that consciousness, in that mindset, everything's perfect. In fact, my favorite affirmation is God's perfect plan is unfolding flawlessly. Now, when I'm in a fearful place, that sounds like bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Although that's the fear speaking. The truth is God's perfect plan is unfolding flawlessly, and my fear lies to me.
And so it seems like you have a definite connection. You have a definite connection to a spiritual core that allows you to observe your behavior and your emotional state in specific situations.
Yeah. But what it doesn't allow me to do is avoid the problems to begin with. But then again, if there was no fear, if there was no overwhelm, and I was just this guru all the time, I probably wouldn't be here. Wouldn't need to be here. Wouldn't need to experience these things. Wouldn't be able to teach others.
And why do you think avoiding the problem is a solution?
It's not. I have to walk through the fear.
So, would it then be a problem?
What?
any situation that comes up that would cause you to be in a fear space. Is being in a fear space your way of acknowledging that there's a problem?
No, being in a fear space just acknowledges that I have a shitty attitude. I'm not dealing very well with the problem. I think.
Which is
what?
The problem. What's the problem?
Problem is the fear.
Okay.
Problem, it has nothing to do with reality.
Right.
It has nothing to do with a particular situation. If I look at a situation when I'm in fear, it seems insurmountable. It seems overwhelming. If I get myself calmed down, if I get myself centered, the answer always comes. And one would think that, oh, well, it just makes sense to just stay there. And if I could do that, I would.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how to do that yet.
So
if you want to teach me that, I'd really be grateful.
Well, this is more of a conversation about how you are able to identify and problem solve. I think it's important. I think it's important personally to be able to observe, because that's a hard space to get into just naturally, because we spend so much time in these emotional urgent states of being that it's hard to pull ourselves back and be able to look at a situation from sort of an objective standpoint and say, my behavior and what I'm feeling is not in my best interest.
Well, I've been working on it for 25 years.
So that's good. You've got some experience on your side. So if we were to take that philosophy, then we could say, and you can tell me whether or not you agree with this, we could say that your ex-wife is not the problem.
Oh, I didn't know we were bringing her up again. Nah, I know what you're doing. You're trying to make me feel shitty here.
No, that's not my deal. I want to make sure that sometimes we like to pick and choose what makes us comfortable. And then when there's something that makes us uncomfortable, we will navigate or re-navigate what we think and say and feel in order to keep the fear there.
Well, some things are scarier than others.
True.
And my ex-wife is scarier than others.
But would you consider, based off of what you've said, would you consider that philosophy congruent to that situation?
Ultimately, the only problem is in between layers.
Okay.
My ex-wife is no more of a problem than the new business.
Mm-hmm.
Although it feels like it. And that's because, again, just from my experience, and I haven't perfected this by any means, but I know things are, I'm not sure how to explain this. I don't think maybe I should just speak for me. I don't necessarily see reality. I see something happening, and then I make up a story about what's happening. And that's my reality. Now, when something happens, and there's story after story after story after story,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of it's been buried, and a lot of it hasn't been, dealt with, and there's denial, and there's years, and it builds up, then it's not this one thing that's happening that's affecting me. It's this whole huge ball of crap, forgive my French, that that can get me into a fearful place. Same thing with the business. It's not this business that's so overwhelming. If I look at all the things in the past in business that I failed at, it gets overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, if I looked at all the successes I've had in the past in business, that can make me feel better. Mm-hmm. So it's really, it comes back down to what's in between my ears at that moment, or more precisely, what state of consciousness I'm in at that moment. That makes sense?
It sounds like you have a thought, and then you have a feeling about that thought. Whether or not that thought is actually occurring or not, you still have a feeling about that thought. And then you allow yourself to believe it, and then behave and feel from it. So if the thought between your ears is, in the past I've been unsuccessful at business, or women, you have a feeling about that unsuccess. Mm-hmm. Or you may say in your head that you've been unsuccessful, when in reality you may have been successful. It just may not have been the kind of successful you thought it should have been. Right. But then you have instead of having a feeling about the reality of the situation, you're having a feeling about what you've created in your head about it.
Yeah. Like I said, it has nothing to do with reality.
And so I think that's normal. I think we all do that. I do. I think about how situations could have been. I think about how situations have been. And I think about how situations could be. And then I respond to them based off of what I'm thinking. And sometimes it's in my best interest. Sometimes it's not. And on a rare occasion, we can actually be right in what we're thinking. Rare occasion. But I think therein lies the rub, the existence of that fear space. Because to me, it sounds like that's the beginning of where fear begins, in that space that we're creating in our head versus learning how to stay in the present moment. And we use the past as sort of a checklist of whether or not it was right or wrong. Which again can be fear and stress inducing, particularly if we have an opinion about what we've done and what we've seen or experienced in the past. I think it's hard to get out of that. But again, your ability to observe is yourself is, I think, a very good place to start learning how to dismantle that fear space. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm working on it, but I still don't. I still don't know how to do it quickly. I still don't know how to do it. I still feel like I could do it more effectively than I do.
Do you think effectively means fast?
I guess so. Either that or I'm less tolerant toward pain than I used to be.
So maybe the focus then shouldn't necessarily be on effectiveness more so than it should be on patience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which goes back sort of to the beginning of our conversation. Because I don't know about you, but I've never seen or experienced anything that has been worthwhile, that's been seconds in the making. Has your experience taught you that?
No, but my expectations have. Again, not necessarily reality.
Right. Not necessarily reality, but there they are.
Yeah.
Always sort of poking at you to try to get you to change your mind.
I guess if I didn't have such high expectations, I wouldn't get disappointed as much. But then again, if I didn't have such high expectations, I'd be sitting around just doing nothing and being that guy at 80 years old and saying, well, no Walmart. So, it's a double-edged sword.
What about enjoyment?
What about it?
Should there be enjoyment in...
I wouldn't enjoy being at Walmart at 80.
Not at Walmart. I'm talking about enjoyment in cultivating a new adventure, such as a business.
When I'm not feeling fearful, I am enjoying it. That's the weird part about it.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that if I'm enjoying it, the fear wouldn't need to be there. It still comes.
Can you have fear and enjoyment?
I don't know. That seems like a strange concept.
Mm-hmm. Even though you're experiencing it.
What?
Fear and joy.
I don't know if they coexist or one follows the other.
But it would seem like they are coexisting. If you are feeling fearful, you have moments of fear, and then you cope with that fear, and then when you're not feeling fear, you have enjoyment.
Yeah, but like you said, when I'm not feeling that fear, I have enjoyment. So I'm enjoying at that moment versus being fearful the moment before. I don't know if I can feel fearful and enjoy it at the same time because I don't enjoy fear.
But isn't that coexisting?
No, I think one follows the other in a time sequence.
Isn't that coexisting?
Now you're being technical.
What do you think coexisting is?
Being able to feel fear and joy at the same time.
Fear and joy at the same time. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of both of them existing not necessarily at the same time, but they're both existing in the same space. They occupy the same space. Not necessarily at the same time, but they both occur.
So the way you're looking at it, I'm actually normal. I'm not sure if that's right.
Well, normal is relative, right?
I guess so.
No, I think that I think that fear, enjoyment, peace, shame, guilt, happiness, they all exist in the same space. It's learning how to handle those things when they pop up. So maybe it's not necessarily trying to eliminate fear more so than it is trying to dull the urgency of it.
Maybe I'm not as screwed up as I thought. You're a pretty good therapist.
So our clock has ticked, and I think this has been really good.
Yeah.
Insightful. I think that you have a strong foundation to work from to help with, I think, whatever endeavor you choose to get into. So much success to you. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
Okay.
Thank you.